Jonah, Part 4. Now, what's to become of Jonah? Well, truth is stranger than fiction. Let's take a look at Jonah chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. From inside the fish, Jonah prayed to the Lord his God. He said, "In my distress, I called to the Lord, and he answered me. From the depths of the grave, I called for help, and you listened to my cry. You hurled me into the depths, into the very heart of the seas. And the currents swirled about me. All your waves and breakers swept over me." I'd just like to interject something real quick. And now this is coming from within my spirit. This is coming from me. Okay, so where I read, all your waves and breakers swept over me, what I see the whip which moves in a wave-like motion sweeping over the back of Christ. That's what I see when I read that line. All your waves and breakers swept over me. That's just me sharing with you. Now, in depths of the grave translates to Sheol, or the dead. And heart of the seas, or heart of the earth, also translates into Sheol. The grave translates to Hades in Greek, or Sheol in Hebrew. And the belly of Sheol and the pit are Old Testament terms that refer to the realm of the dead, or grave. All mean realm or place of the dead. All are temporary. The believers in paradise, or Abraham's bosom, awaited heaven, while Hades, or Sheol, was like a jail for the lost who are awaiting trial and sentencing to the lake of fire, the final and permanent place of judgment. Now, the Hebrew says that Jonah's soul, or nephesh, fainted, which essentially means he took his last breath, like a dying man. When God says to Jonah a second time, "Arise and go to Nineveh," this word in the Hebrew has the same meaning of the word Jesus used when he raised Jairus' daughter from the dead. Mark 5, verse 41 reads, "Taking the child by the hand, he said to her, Talitha Kumi," which translates to, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." So now we're in Jonah chapter 2, verse 4. He says, "I've been banished from your sight." And in Mark chapter 15, verse 34, in the New Testament, Jesus says, my God, why have you forsaken me?" On to verse 5. "The engulfing waters threatened me. The deep surrounded me. Seaweed was wrapped around my head." Now to Matthew 27, verse 29. "When they had twisted a crown of thorns, they put it on his head." When I visualize seaweed wrapped around someone's head, seaweed is wet. So therefore a crown of thorns wrapped around someone's head who is bleeding would appear wet as well. Quite the metaphor. Now to verse 6. "To the roots of the mountains I sank down. The earth beneath me barred me in forever. But you, Lord my God, brought my life up from the pit." Before he prayed, Jonah had been thrown into Sheol, the place of the dead, and the bars of the gate had been closed behind him. But God rescued him when he prayed, bringing his life up from the pit, which means Sheol, or grave. Let me break it down to you like this. Jonah drowned. He died. How do I know Jonah died? By studying key words in the passages. See, the words or expressions like pit, depths of the grave, heart of the seas, earth beneath barred in, life ebbing away. In the original Hebrew, all mean Sheol. the realm of the dead. Jonah went into the water, died, and was resurrected, and then came back out of the water. Sounds like a baptism to me. Jesus didn't do anything in his ministry until he was first baptized. Went into the wilderness and fasted for 40 days. Then he performed his first miracle of turning water into wine, which is symbolic of the word into flesh and baptism into communion. When Jonah preached in Nineveh, there was repentance and fasting for 40 days. Then they were miraculously saved from destruction. So why do you think a wicked city like Nineveh so quickly repented? When Jonah died, he went to Sheol, the realm of the dead. When Jesus described the account of the rich man and the poor man Lazarus, we know that there were two areas of the dead: Abraham's bosom, or paradise, and the place of torment. Lazarus and the rich man could see each other, but there was a chasm that separated them that they could never cross. Could it be that Jonah met some of the Ninevites' relatives who, like the rich man, begged Jonah to warn their relatives on the other side? And to top that off, the Ninevites worshipped a god named Dagon, who was a half man, half fish god, a merman. I mean, come on. How convincing would the message of a man be if he came out of the mouth of a fish in front of a culture that worshipped a half fish, half man God? Were they hearing from God? Well, they absolutely were hearing from God, the God who has dominion over the land and the sea, the God of Jonah. This concludes Jonah Part 4.